Thank you so much. I'm excited about this. My name is Rosemary. I have been playing with art mediums. Well, I've been doing photography probably for about 10 or 12 years, and then started painting about 2 years ago. But I had a really big story in my head that I was not an artist, right? That's not what I am. I'm not a real artist, right? I can dabble, but that's it. And so I started playing with acrylic pours because of that, because I liked the fact that it wasn't controlled as much as I am a control freak. I don't know if there's any other control people here in the group, but goodness knows I am the queen of control. But I was like, I like the idea of not being able to be in control. I have to let go. I have to do what I can, and then I get to let go. And there have been times where I let go and I walk away and I come back 3 hours later and I have a whole different painting than when I had when I first started, because the paint moves and it does its own thing. I've leveled the table as much as possible so that doesn't happen, but it happens. So I think that since the coronavirus, I became unemployed, as many of us have been. And so I had a lot of time on my hands, and the good and the bad of that, right? So the good is it gave me lots of opportunity to go into my own internal, I'm a very spiritual person, so going into a lot of my own internal process. But I also felt like I needed an outlet that didn't need to necessarily be an escape or a physical thing, but just kind of a different way to be with myself. And that's what got me to thinking about the acrylics. And so I started doing acrylic pours, and I loved it. And I was not attached to anything as far as selling them or doing it as a living, or just, I'm like, that's what a lot of these are, paintings that I have done. And then I put them up on the wall. And then I go to the next painting or the next technique or the next thing, and I put it up on the wall. And I don't know, about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, about a month into doing this consistently from home, I would start posting them on Facebook because I thought, oh, how fun. Let me just share it, because I was so proud. I'm like a little 3-year-old, like, oh my God, I did this. And people were interested and people wanted to buy my paintings. And that really put me to a whole nother level of, like, my mind going, what? You want to buy this? Wow. And of course I loved it, but to know that someone else loved it meant the world to me. So from there, well, I'm obsessed. I am constantly learning, taking classes, trying to understand the paint, um, understanding why for some people the paint flows a certain way and it's certain types of techniques. And I've learned a lot. There are all sorts of techniques, all sorts of ways to do paintings. What we're going to do here today is a acrylic pour, but with a reverse flower. So you'll see what I mean when we do that, but it comes out looking like a flower. It's always comes out looking like a flower. It is fascinating to me. Again, it's one of those things that you start off a certain way, and by the time you're done, you have something completely different. And you're like, wow. And there have been moments, that's what these two here are literally identical. I did them at the same exact time, side by side. The only difference was this had the black background, this had the white background. The colors on the paintings are identical. I did them the same exact way, all the same tools, and there you are. They look completely different. So that's the beauty of this process, is you don't have control, and I kind of like that. So I am going to flip the camera away from me and onto our canvas. So give me 1 second to push a button here, and then we will get started. If you have questions, obviously you can always ask them on chat. Hopefully I'll see them, and if I do, I'll make sure to respond, okay, as we go
I'll be
along.
happy to help field those for you.
Thank you. Okay, here's our canvas. Here's our table. I tried to get everything within reach of me. So my process is I do a few things first. So the first thing I do is I do tape the back of my paintings. This is going to be a different opinion. This is just painter's tape, so it comes up easily. Everybody has a different opinion on this. I have kind of a middle of the ground opinion. Some artists do not tape them at all because they feel that kind of tells the story, which I love that. Some artists tape the entire thing all the way, to a point of darn near use a whole roll of tape, which, I'm like, okay, we don't need to get out of control. I like the middle of the road, right? I do kind of like having a cleaner back canvas. Now, as my hands get paint on them, I don't necessarily do gloves, especially right now with everything going on with the coronavirus. I try and stay away from gloves as much as possible, which means my hands are usually full of paint.
Hey, Rosemary, just a quick
Yes,
question. Is that a
yes,
canvas? Is that a canvas? Somebody
yes.
wants to know.
Oh, sorry. Good, good. Thank you. So this is the canvas that I'm using. We're doing a 12 by 12 painting is what we're going to do here today. So right now it's got obviously nothing on it. It's a canvas. You buy them at Michael's. You don't have to go over the top. You can get them at Michael's or Amazon. It's just a standard canvas. So what I do is I flip it over and I put the tape on the back of it. I cut off the edges just because, you know, it can impact the way the paint flows down. So just cut those little pieces off. That one's already, and this one. And then the other thing that I do is I put little feet on the canvas. The reason I put feet on the canvas is because, again, if the paint drips off the side, then you get more paint here. Now, if I have paint on my hands and I go to pick this up and I put paint here, I'm okay with that. That's my part of telling the story. I just don't necessarily want it completely covered. So these are my little feet. These are push pins, but they're jumbo size. And what I do is I just put them into the bottom so that, again, it kind of lifts it off the table so it's not sitting in the paint as it dries. It can take a while to dry. Whoever is the lucky winner, did I just say winter? I did. Okay, the lucky winner of this painting will not get it right away because it does need to dry, cure, and I need to varnish it. So it could be a week or two before I can get the painting to Carolyn so that she can get it sent out, or you pick it up at the center, however that ends up working. But this at least helps a little bit because then you don't get paint all in the back and it's not sitting in a puddle of paint. Although the style that we're doing today is not going to be much paint on the paper. So little feet on there, everything's ready to go. And see, now it's like a little table. I also have a level that I use to make sure, yep, that it's level. And I do that again because the paint does move. So I make sure that we're level. Alrighty. Most of my paints are already mixed. I am going to mix one paint just to show you guys how I do this. But basically the process is I buy paints, again, from Michael's, Artist Lofts, different colors. I have all kinds of different colors. I also use, and somebody was asking earlier, I use this product here. It's called Floetrol, and it's what you add to your paint. This helps with the paint flowing, moving. It extends the amount of paint. Otherwise, if you're just using straight paint, you're going to go through a lot of paint. So this kind of stretches that. And it helps, again, with the fluidity of the paint so it'll flow on the canvas. So let's move this out of the way for just 1 second. And what I do is I just have a little Dixie cup. I get my paint. I hope there's paint in there. And I squeeze it into the cup. How much you use, there is a formula for exact measurements. I'll be honest with you, I don't measure. I'm terrible. I'm really bad. Some painters are to the T. I am not. So we put a good amount. I mean, there's a good blobby amount. It's kind of hard to tell on the camera, but there's, I don't know, probably about 2 ounces, 2.5 ounces. And then we open the Floetrol. Hang on. Okay. There is a little netting that I put there because Floetrol can get a little clumpy. So I put, it's actually a piece of lace. I have a huge piece of lace that I just cut little pieces and put it on there with a rubber band to keep it on there. And that's how I pour it into the cup. So now I put about, I don't know, half a cup of this Floetrol into the cup. So right now, for example, see, it just looks like white. But as you start to stir it, of course, the paint starts to come up. And what you're wanting to do is really stir it well. You want to stir ideally for a couple of minutes to really get it to mix in. Otherwise, you'll end up with streaks in your paint, which will not make you happy because the white of the Floetrol with the color of the paint. Scrape the sides of the cup also so that you're making sure that you're getting as much of it as possible. Now, here's the fun part. This is what somebody was asking earlier as far as what do you add and how do you do it. And Carolyn was actually sharing that she was using some of her paints and she thought that some of the ones she was using were too thick. It can get too thick, it can get too thin. There's like a happy medium. What you do is you want to see how you have a lump on a lump, blob on a blob, drip on a drip kind of thing. It's kind of what you want. Now I want, because of the kind of pour that we're going to do, I want this to be a little less thick. I want a little less of the blob before it starts to do running off of the stick, right? So what I do is I'm going to add a smidgen of water. You really want to be careful with adding water to your paints, because if you add too much, now you got to add more paint and it becomes a cycle. So you literally are putting a teaspoon or two into the cup of water, or into the cup of paint, I'm sorry. And again, with water, you really want to stir quite a bit. If you don't stir, you get streaks and you'll get, the painting will end up with like light faded portions wherever the paint is for that.
Hey,
So
Rosemary.
Yes.
So
yes.
sorry. What is underneath the canvas? What is your on your table to protect it?
Sure. Yeah. No, these are great questions. Thank you, Carolyn, so much. So what I've done is, the table is just, okay, this all depends on who you're talking to. To my husband, it's a precious table. To me, it's just another table in the house. It's not precious. It's not special, but it's a table and it's special to him. So what I did was I put a plastic bag. Now I've had this plastic bag on this table for 2 years now. I actually just recently flipped it. I am not into wasting the plastic and the environment and all of those pieces. So I really struggled with whether to put a plastic bag. My husband had already done it, and I'm like, all right, how do I best use this? So these are black garbage bags, the real big ones, cut in half, and it covers the entire table. And then what I have is I just have like wax paper that you use for cooking. You can use wax paper or parchment paper. Actually, this is parchment. I also have wax. And I just put a sheet of that down on top of the plastic. So this sheet will probably be thrown away once I'm done. But at least that way it's not putting constant plastic over plastic of garbage bags into the environment. So that kind of helps with the cleaning process also.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so this, I still want this a little more liquidy. So we're going to do that. Okay. Yeah. All right. So the other thing I do with all of my paintings, this is something that's personal to me. I love what I'm doing. I don't ever want to lose that. And I don't ever want to forget why I started this process. So we're going to have a moment. What I do is I just kind of literally stand, and I do this literally with every single painting I do. So I stand here with the canvas blank, and I close my eyes for a minute, and I just kind of connect with that part of me that's doing the painting, right? Not this intellectual human mind that I love and adore, but she's not playing right now. Somebody else is playing. So I connect with that part of that inner child, that spiritual person that truly wants to do a work of art without having a judgment or a criticism or a conversation about whether it's right or it's wrong or it's perfect or it's not. And then once I do that, then I actually write an intention statement on the canvas before I even start. So just give me a second to kind of feel into this. Okay, got it. So then I just write whatever message shows up. So it came up with love and peace with so much compassion. It's, again, it's written on every single one of my pieces. I, for a while there, thought I should keep track of what I had written. And then I was like, nope, again, do not want to control it. So I just write it with a pencil. I know it's upside down and backwards to you guys, but it's just kind of a special message for each one of my paintings as they go off. Carolyn can tell you, I get very attached to my paintings. They mean a lot to me. They're from my heart, right? Like when Carolyn came to pick up her blue painting that she has behind her, I cried. It's like I was letting go of a child. Lord help me. Okay, so once we do this, this is all set. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put a black, I'm going to do a black one, kind of like the one I showed you behind. So we're going to do a black background. So we're going to get our black paint. And again, I have these all mixed already in little cups because I knew we didn't have like 4 hours. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this all over the canvas. I want it to cover the canvas completely. So I'm going to put that over here. And this is where we get to play. It's kind of like finger painting when you're kids. And if you can just get out of your head about the fact that you could be or not be making a mess and just have fun with it, it's kind of what it comes down to for this. So put on there as much as we can without going off a deep end. And then you start to kind of move the paint around on the canvas, again, as much as you can. You want it to spread around. You don't want it to be too obnoxiously thick, but you don't want it to get too thin on you either. So you're constantly just playing with it. I also have a spatula over here that what I'm going to do, and again, my hands end up all covered. I have this spatula. I've gone through, I don't know how many spatulas. This is the best one. Did somebody just ask a question? Am I crazy? No.
No, yes, they did, Rosemary.
Yeah,
Basically, do all the paints have the Floetrol mixed in like this black one? And I,
yes.
yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. I also sometimes, again, depending on the type of painting that I'm doing, there is something called a Liquitex gloss pouring. I still haven't figured out this mirror. That there, it's called gloss medium and varnish. It's all in one. And depending on the painting, I will put that in there sometimes because it helps with what they call cells so that they don't overstretch. That's what was happening to me for the longest time there. I was having one painting and then 2 hours later I'd come down to the basement just to see how it was doing, and I had a whole nother painting. I'm like, oh no, like what happened to all those cells? They all went away. And it's because they were stretching, where that other product, the Liquitex, helps it to not stretch as much. It almost controls the stretching. And on certain types of paintings, you want that. This one that we're doing today is not that kind. You want to make sure you get all your, sorry for the top of my head, folks. I need to pour a little more back here.
Cell, you mean C-E-L-L? Is that
correct?
Space that you want to trap further colors as you add?
I'll show you a painting that has cells. Yeah, it's kind of like it creates holes, but then another color comes through. It's really very beautiful technique. It's just that you don't always want it. But I'll show you one that has it so that you can kind of get a feel. It actually might happen with this one to a point, just depending on how the paints decide to behave. Okay, I think we've got this all the way around. I'll show you a painting with cells afterwards just because I have paint all over my hands now, but I will show you.
And Rosemary,
Yes.
just once again, the paints you use. So I know you mentioned at Michael's.
Yes,
you know,
Michael's Artist Loft.
Michael's Artist Loft. Okay,
Correct.
and they're acrylics. Mm-hmm.
Yes, they're all acrylics. Every once in a while, like I said, some artists like to use enamels. I still haven't. I bought enamels and I went, okay, I don't get it. I don't understand how I'm supposed to use this. It consumes the painting. It takes over. I don't do it. All right. So all I'm going to do now is just tilt this down so that any extra paint that wants to like flowingly come off without me having to do anything comes off. That way you don't have big bumps. The paint isn't as self-leveling as ideally it would be, which I would love if it was. Floetrol does help with self-leveling. So in other words, it doesn't create a bunch of bumps and globs of paint. Of course, you're an artist. You're going to have texture. I did a painting for my sister not too long ago, and it had texture to it. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. It's got like textures and streaks. And she's like, oh, no, I love that. That's what I love. I love the fact that you have that. Okay. So we have a nice glossy finish. Got that taken care of. Hang on, let me get a paper towel so I can. And then what you want to do is you want to pop bubbles. There are bubbles on here that you do not see, but you do not want them. So I have a, little butane lighter, and I just pop any bubbles that are on here. I just kind of go over it casually, quickly. You don't hang out there. I haven't had anything catch on fire, but there are artists that say that things have caught on fire for them, so you don't want to hold it down there for too long. Okay, we now have our base. How fun. Okay, here we go. All our secrets. This is the bottom of a cup. You know how when you buy a 2-liter bottle or a 1-liter bottle or anything, there I actually have, I don't know if I have another one, but I have another one around here too because I do smaller and 3-petal flowers. For example, I was messing with this one yesterday, and that's a 3-petal flower, and it's a smaller canvas, obviously. So it's a different bottom, but we're doing this bottom. I don't know what I do with the 2. Anyway, so what you're going to do is you want this in the center of your painting as much as possible. You either have my husband's perspective, who pulls out a measuring tape and measures exactly where the center is, or you have me. I'm like, yep, that looks like the middle. So that's what I do, is I just kind of, oh wait, there's some more bubbles there. Put it down as much as to the center as I can. All right. So I eyeball it, I guess is what you would say. I think that's about right. Maybe over a little bit. Okay. And now
Perfect.
the fun begins, right? I think it's perfect. With this kind of a painting, you don't want to do too much paint because you don't want it to go over the sides. Although, again, as I said earlier, the white one that I did, it went over the sides. The black one, it didn't. It's going to do what it's going to do. What you're doing is you're doing layers of paint, all right? So we're going to start. What color do we want to start with? You know what? Let's start. There I have something called, this is the only one that is not Artist Loft. This paint here that I'm getting ready to use is Deco Art Metallics. It is called 24 karat gold. It is a, that's not focusing very well, but I promise it's called 24 karat gold. This here, all I can say is good luck. You do mix it with Floetrol. You just don't want a lot of it. It will take over your painting. It will consume your world. So you want to be careful with how much you use. So I literally use a little teeny tiny drop just whenever I do use it. And a little tiny bit will fall. It'll slowly get there on the painting. And you'll see more obvious with other colors. Again, I don't use as much of the gold. Okay. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to do, let's do some magenta, is one of the colors I wanted to use today. And so what you're doing is you're pouring it on the top so it'll go into the grooves. See? And it lands on your canvas. Just pour it on there. Try and have it as balanced as possible as far as how much paint goes in each one of the grooves. So your petals, so to speak, aren't too far off. But again, you're going to mess with it anyway. And you want to make sure you don't let it blop on your canvas. So make sure you catch it. In between each and every one, I will put a layer of white pearl iridescent. Again, still mixed with Artist Loft, nothing different. This is another color that can take over. So you want to be careful with it. You don't want to just put massive amounts down, but you definitely, you want contrast colors. If you just do all dark, I love doing dark magenta, dark cobalt, dark green, and they're beautiful, but there's no contrast. And if there's no contrast, it doesn't do the same effect. So as you can see, you start to see how it drops on there. So now we'll go with a little bit of teal. We'll put that on there. Make sure it falls on all of them. Some of them are more greedy than others. And again, you are looking down at the canvas to make sure it gets down there. And then to the white again. Very little. And then, oh, where's my purple? Let's do purple. I love purple. I'm a purple teal kind of girl. I do purple for everything. So we throw purple in there. And you want to, again, keep an eye out on how much paint is going on that canvas, because if it gets too far, it starts to, whoop, there you go, see? And this will all not be seen anyway. I'm just being pedantic. Okay. And then white again. There we go. And the gold, what I love about the gold, which you cannot see, but you'll see it later, is that it actually just starts to merge with the paint. It doesn't necessarily create a layer like these other colors do, which is really a beautiful merging. Okay, a little cobalt blue. Again, another one of my favorite colors. And I'll be honest, I did not do this ahead of time. So I didn't do this painting before to make sure these colors mixed well. The good and the bad of that. Keep our fingers crossed. Before I add another layer of white, I'm going to add one more of the gold, because again, it'll kind of give it that merging, which I think is so beautiful. So we're just putting a teeny tiny drop of the gold in each one of these, so it'll eventually get down there. And hope it doesn't take over. Okay, now let's go ahead. No, let's not do white. We're going to do a little bit of pink. And again, you're winging this. I mean, that's the beauty of it, is that that's why no two paintings are the same, which again is part of what I like, but part of the challenge, especially when somebody sees something I've done and they're like, oh my God, I want that one. And I'm like, yeah, whoops, there we go, dripping. The problem with that one is it's sold and I don't have that one anymore. So I can always say to people, what are your colors? What colors do you like? Give me an idea of something you saw, because I do different techniques, but I cannot guarantee you that it's going to look the same. Carolyn can attest to this.
Yes.
She fell in love with one of my paintings and was like, oh, I want that one. And actually her painting ended up being a very, you know, as I said earlier, I'm a very spiritual person. It became a very spiritual, profound experience for me, because I did hers 3 times. And I finally sat down and said, okay, enough of that. Let go, let God, let universe, let somebody. I am not doing this painting. Someone else is going to do it. And I just kind of got out of my own way. And it worked out beautifully. So, you know, it's a combination of me, the human, and me, whoever else is wanting to hang out with me. My child. My inner child is what I say it is. All right. So then a little bit of purple. Oh, more.
It's really fun to watch you do this, Rosemary, and see just the creativity, and it's great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really do enjoy it. I do my best, as I said, to stay out of my head about it, because the moment I'm finished, I'm like, oh my gosh, that didn't come out the way I wanted it. That's not the look I wanted. And that's the interesting part. When you attach yourself to the way you want something to look, it's not fun, people. I would say if you want to do this just because it makes you happy, then do it. But if you're going to get into your head about it and try and analyze it and figure it out, you're going to drive yourself crazy. That's kind of been my philosophy. So keep that in mind. All right, I'm going to put a tiny bit of black as my final color, just again for the contrast. And then yes, ma'am. Were you going to ask?
Well, I was just going to say, a question came up, you know, just how many layers is it when you feel you're done, or do you have a saturation point? Or
it really is a lot about, it's a combination. It's when you feel you're done, and you want to watch the petals as they pour down, because again, if they get too big, because this keeps spreading, it's going to go, you're looking at it going, oh, I still have, you know, 3 or 4 inches, I'm good. But you're not, because this painting will continue to spread, and especially with the next piece of this, because this is not it. So you do want to be careful with that. So it is just a matter of eyeballing it and seeing, like, okay, where am I at? How does it look? I guess is the best answer, which is not always.
No, that's good. That's good.
For
Thank you.
those of us that are control freaks. Okay, so now you carefully lift this up and put your hand underneath it because you don't want it to drip. There. Voila, right? Okay, so now what I do is I have a skewer. This is kind of a paintbrush for me. It's just a skewer like you use for cooking. And you kind of want to add a little design to it. So what I do is I start usually from the outside, from the black, and I pull in a line. You go all the way around, and you wipe it off every once in a while, otherwise. So it causes more of a petal feel to your flowers. Okay. And then I then pull out. So let's see how I want to do this. I'm going to pull from the gold. So you pull it out. And again, this is individual, how you do this. It doesn't matter. I saw a woman yesterday that I was watching who did these lines all the way around. She did like 50 of them, and that's all she did. And it was so beautiful. So it's just a matter of, you know, play, right? We don't give ourselves enough permission to play in life. So that's what I tell people all the time. I'm like, you know what, just play. And it's funny because when I first started doing this, my husband was really the one that got me into it. He's like, let's go down and paint. I was like, what? He's like, oh, we have all those paints. Let's paint. And I'm like, I'm not an artist. He's like, babe, get out of your head. You know, forget that. And for 6 or 7 months, it was in my head, I am not an artist. I don't know how to do this. And it really wasn't until the last 3 or 4 months. I've been doing this, but it wasn't until the last 3 or 4 months that I finally went, you know what? I need to get out of my head. I need to just have fun and play and not try to master it or get it perfect. So, all right, now, this is the fun part or the scary part, depending on your perspective, especially for me, because for me, oh, the other thing I do, sorry, just as a reminder, is in the center, I like to put a swirl, and I will put a swirl in afterwards again anyway. But you just go in there and you just draw like a swirl. And you don't want to scrape the canvas. I don't know if you can see that little swirl, but, and I'll bring this in afterwards as a close-up so you guys can see. Now comes the fun, scary part. Because for me, I want to leave it. For me, I'm like, okay, good. It's a flower. Love the way it looks. Beautiful. It's not doing anything. Life is good. Nope. So we torch to make sure that that paint we just put down doesn't have any bubbles. And if any cells, as I was saying earlier, want to come up, which there are no cells, so that's good. And this is what we do. I get a paper towel. You can get a paper towel. You can get a napkin. It doesn't matter what it is. And I get a little spray bottle. This is just a spray bottle of water. There's nothing in it. And I spray the paper towel. I dampen the paper towel. That's what we're doing. And we're doing that so it will fall easier and more peacefully. I don't think it's peaceful is what they call it, but I can't think of the word right now. Easeful on the paper towel. And you really can't even tell, but see how it's slightly damp, right? It's not a lot. You don't want to soak it. You don't want to take the paper towel to the sink and soak it down. You literally are just dampening. Okay, here we go. So what you're going to do is you're going to put this paper towel over this entire painting. And the paint will suck onto the paper towel. So come on here. And you want to do it as even as possible. See? You see the flowers right there. Ta-da! And we're done. No, I'm only kidding. Just kidding. I think I wanted to be like a magician or something in a past life or something. I don't know what my gig is. All right. You want to make sure it's got there as much as possible. Now, I need to bring my little trash can over. And trash can. You want to be careful how you do this because you can end up with a mess, which I have done. You grab your corners is where you start. And you pull your corners up, right? And you hold on to those two corners. And now you grab your other corner and you hold on to that corner. And then you grab your last corner. When you know you have it all, you're going to lift and move. So lift and move. And you have your flower. Now, what I do, which is what I love. Oh, this came out so pretty. I love these colors. So as I'm doing this, let's see if you can tell on the camera. No, again, I'll bring the camera in. You'll see that there are little poppings that are happening, which is what I was talking about referring to earlier as cells. So what I do now is I take the gold and I dip the edge of my stick because I want a center. I want a pronounced center in there. So you don't want a lot, and you just dip it in there and turn. So that you have a center to your flower. Otherwise, it's just a little off balanced. So it creates just that little middle piece. And then I will, a lot of times, go in here and just slowly tweak things. I just dip the stick into certain colors if I'm finding I'm wanting to pronounce or bring a color out more. And so then I'll just dip it into that color with the stick and pull it through. It just kind of helps with the pulling through of some of these colors that you've got in here. I love these colors. They're so pretty. Really love the way this came out. And again, you're just kind of creating some accents to it. It's not, you know, a science. It's not like it has to be a certain way. You technically don't even have to do any of this. This is just me liking to add a little bit of accents to it. There. Now, if you want to, one of the things you can do is you be very careful and you can tilt it to get it to stretch a little. If you're wanting the flower to be a little more pronounced, you want to be very, very careful about doing this because you could completely change the painting. What I'm going to try and do is, I don't know if I can show you guys some of the cells. No, I think we're going to have to do the camera, bring the camera down to the painting.
I saw some of what you were talking about with that too.
Did you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you're just, and the cells are almost like little holes, like I said, that other colors pop in. And so it's really a beautiful process. And as this dries, it will morph. It is fascinating. One of the reasons that I do love this so much is because we do try and control it. And as it dries, you end up with something completely different. These colors will saturate within each other. They will stretch. They will move. And it just creates something else altogether. And there's such a beauty about it. So it's just, again, a matter of what your preferences are on how you want the colors to look, what you want it to do. Hang on, I want a little more pronounced in the center. Whoops. There. Yeah, there you go. So that's pretty much it. That really is the extent of this particular technique. It's not difficult, and you can use whatever colors you want, and you're just a matter of doing your own thing. Let me see if I can, well, I'm not promising anything, folks. Okay. So if you come down, let's see here. I can figure out how to do this. If I can get it to focus. Come on. Focus. Not going to focus, are you? Nope.
It looks like my eyesight in the morning, you know, before I put my glasses. There you go.
I know. So you see here, for example, there's these little bubble-like feel. Those are cells. And what happens is it's one color, and then when you do the torch, another color comes up and through, so that you have different colors that are happening throughout the painting. See how you have that whole row there? That's all cells, the white and the pink. And those are all different cells. And they will keep showing up. It will be completely different by the time the painting actually dries, which is fun. Like I literally will run down to the basement throughout the day to see how it's doing. Of course, now I can't get this camera back on here for the life of me, right? Guess I should have practiced this. I'm on. No, hang on. I'm gonna get it.
Careful of your shirt.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have done that before too. Okay, I'm gonna get it. I promise. Oh, nice. Husband, where are you when I need you? Okay. I don't know. Don't
That's
fall
good.
off. I know. I'm afraid it's not on there very well, but we're gonna say a prayer and hope it does. So that's about the extent of it. This one is a very, very simple painting, which is why I did this, because I thought nice and easy. Does anybody have any questions? Additional questions?
Let's see. There's something in the chat.
I didn't even. Oh, thank you, Tom. That's very sweet. Oh, that's okay. So it looks like you've got them, a lot of them, and you dry it right away with a torch. No, Blaze, I would definitely not try to dry it right away for multiple reasons. First of all, the paint will dry different than if it dries naturally. Like, for example, I noticed in the winter, I had more challenges with my paintings drying than now as it's starting to get a little warmer and more humid. So no, I would not. As far as for finishing it, what I do is once it's completely dry, so again, this will take a day or two to dry, then there are different ways you can varnish it. You can either do a resin pour, which I love the way resin looks, but it smells horrible. And I did one painting with a resin, which I don't think is down here. It isn't. It's upstairs in my meditation space. But it still smells, and it's been 3 weeks. I just am not doing resin. So I just do varnish. You can either do a spray varnish, a high gloss is what I like, spray varnish, which I have done on most of these paintings that I do. So for example, this one, I painted it, and then I do a gloss varnish on it. You can't tell, it doesn't show intensely, but it protects the painting. So, and then once you spray it, I do 2 or 3 coats, and then it's ready to go. But that, again, 2 or 3 coats takes at least 24 to 48 hours to really finish, to get to that point where it's fully cured. So, if that makes any sense. Any other questions? No?
And if you want, you can unmute yourself to ask a question, or you can use the chat.
Yeah, whichever one's easier now at this point.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're good. Yay! I was going to do a second painting, but I'm noticing the time, and I know that we're not going to have show some of my other pieces. I can do a couple of them real quick. This one I just recently did. I actually did a piece during all of this time and everything that's happening on our planet right now. I mean, there's no avoiding or denying where we're at right now on our planet. And I could feel where I was really struggling personally. And I did a piece with glass, broken glass. And so I had a couple pieces left over. The piece with broken glass I don't have here. That's the one that's up in my meditation space because it is so profound for me. But I did this one, which had some of the pieces of glass left over. So if you can tell, see, like, oh, actually, she's upside down for you guys. Here, let's turn her up right. I found a little piece of glass that had a heart in it, and so I did that. So this one is 6 by 6, and then I painted it and then just added little pieces of glass to it, which really, it's amazing because as much as I take pictures of my paintings, it just doesn't, a photograph never really captures from my point of view. Here, just so that you can see what I was telling you guys earlier. So the black painting is the one that you all saw with Carolyn's announcement. And this is the white painting of exactly the same colors and the same exact technique. And so you can see the gold in this one really seemed to have taken over. So I had to be a little more careful with the gold, but it's beautiful. I mean, I love it. So it's fun. It's, you know, I do all kinds of different techniques. This one was completely different from anything that we've talked about. This one, I actually pulled a paintbrush, heaven forbid, and did this, which again, just very different for me. And then if you can see in the middle, I like textures. So there's like little pieces of tinsel and different little things in the middle that make it pop out of the painting, which again, this one was very powerful for me. I loved this painting. I cry a lot. I'm a big crier, and I cried a lot for that one. So yeah, I mean, it's great. I could sit here all day and show you paintings. Let's not do that, you guys.
That's great. It's nice to see all the diversity. I mean, there's all kinds of acrylic pours that you can do. You showed us one, which I've never seen before, so that was really fun. But there's just so many different ways you can do it, and if people are interested, there are so many websites. I think what would you Google? Acrylic pour, YouTube?
Yeah, acrylic pours. Yeah, yeah. And there's all kinds, and there's so many different. I mean, there is. I mean, and you got to be careful, because I think for me the challenge has been, it's like I watch one particular person doing it and I think, oh, I love their technique, and I go out and buy all the supplies to do it the way they're doing it, and then I find somebody else and I love it, and I'm like, oh, I love the way they're doing it, but they're not using this, they're using, and before you know it, you have, as I do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cabinets full of paint and canvases, and you're out of control, and your husband's like, all right, we have a budget. You've moved on the budget. You've got to stop. So you've got to be careful. Just find an artist that you like and give it a try. Really, it is about get out of your head and into your heart. That's my theory on this, right? Get out of your head, into your heart, and play. I will be doing an Etsy shop. It's up, but there's no paintings in it. So, you know, it's called Rosa Maria's Art. Rosa Maria is my birth-given first name. And that's how I sign my paintings, is Rosa Maria. But I don't have any paintings in there, so I wouldn't recommend you go there because there's nothing there to see. If you're interested, find me on Facebook as Rosemary Quade Nichols, PM me and say, hey, have you gotten your Etsy shop up? And I'll be more than happy to get you the link for that once I have it. I do show a lot of my pictures on Facebook right now. Just
very nice.